I love New York City. When I first moved to New York City, it was a dream come true. Every corner was like a theater production happening right in front of me. So much personality, so many stories. Every subculture I loved was in New York City. I could play chess all day and all night. You know, there's one of the things about New York City is I've done that. I've gone out in the middle of the night or whatever and just walked around, and you will come up across these places, these chess rooms where these Russians are playing chess, and you could just sit down and play anybody. And it's phenomenal. And it's like that with everything in New York. Said I could go to comedy clubs. I could start any type of business. I could meet people. I had family, friends, opportunities. No matter what happened to me, New York was a net I could fall back on and bounce back up. But now it's completely dead. But New York City always bounces back, they say. No, not this time. But New York City is the center of the financial universe. Opportunities will flourish here again. No, not this time. NYC has experienced worse. No, it hasn't. A Facebook group formed a few weeks ago that was for people who were planning a move and wanted others to talk to and give them advice. Within 2 or 3 days, it had 10,000 members. Every day I see more and more posts. I've been in New York City forever, but I guess this time I have to say goodbye. Every single day I see those posts. I've been screenshotting them for my scrapbook. The 3 most important reasons to move to New York City: business opportunities, culture, and food. And, of course, friends. But if everything I say is even 1/10 of what I think, there won't be as many opportunities to make friends, and that equals business. Midtown Manhattan, the center of business in New York City, is empty. Even though people can go back to work, famous office buildings like the Time Life skyscraper is 90% empty. Businesses realize they don't need to get their employees at the office. In fact, they realize they're even more productive without everyone back in the office. The Time Life building can handle 8,000 workers. Now, it maybe has 500 workers back in the building. What do you mean? A friend of mine said when I told him Midtown should be called Ghost Town. I'm in my office right now. Really? What are you doing there? I asked. Packing up. Then he laughed. Okay, I'm shutting it down. He works in the entertainment business. Another friend of mine works at a major investment bank as a managing director. Before he was at the office every day, sometimes working 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. He now lives in Phoenix, Arizona. As of June, he told me, I've never been to Phoenix. And then he moved there, and he does all of his meetings on Zoom. I was talking to a book editor who's been out of the city since early March. We've all been working fine. I'm not sure why we would ever need to go back to the office again. One friend of mine, Derek Halpern, was convinced he'd stay. He put up a Facebook post the other day saying he might be changing his mind. Derek wrote, in the last week, I've watched a homeless person lose his mind and start attacking random pedestrians, including spitting on, throwing stuff at, and swatting. I've seen several single parents with a child asking for money for food, and then when somebody gave them food, they tossed the food right back at them. I watched a man yell racist slurs every single race of people while charging, then stopping before going too far. And worse. I've been living in New York City for 10 years. It has definitely gotten worse, and there is no end in sight. My favorite park is Madison Square Park. About a month ago, 19-year-old girl was shot and killed across the street. I don't think I have an answer, but what I do think is clear. It's time to move out of New York City. And I'm not the only one who feels this way either. In my building alone, the rent has plummeted by 30%. More people are moving away than ever. So it's not goodbye yet, but a long-life New Yorker is thinking about it, end quote. I pick his post out, but I could have picked dozens of others. People say New York City has been through a lot worse and it always comes back. No and no. First, when has New York City been through worse? Even in the 1970s and through the 80s, when New York City was going bankrupt, even when it was the crime capital of the U.S. or close to it, it was still the capital of business world, meaning it was the primary place young people would go to build wealth and find opportunity. It was culturally on top of its game, home to artists, theater, media, advertising, publishing. It was probably the food capital of the U.S. New York City has never been locked down for 5 months. in the midst of the polio epidemic, when little kids, including my mother, were going paralyzed or dying. New York City didn't go through this. This is not to say what should or should not have been done. That part is over. But now we have to deal with what is. Then, in June, during rioting and looting, a second wave of New Yorkers, this time me, left. I have kids. Nothing wrong with protests, but I was nervous when I saw videos of rioters after curfew trying to break into my building. Many people left temporarily, but there were people leaving permanently. Friends of mine moved to Nashville, Miami, Austin, Denver, Salt Lake, Austin, Dallas. Now a third wave of people are leaving, but they might be too late. Prices are down 30 to 50% on both rentals and sales, no matter what real estate agents tell you. And rentals are soaring in the second and third tier cities. I can tell you this from firsthand experience. If you are moving to someplace like Idaho or Wyoming, I have family in both, and they are saying that right now the real estate, you put your house up, it will sell sight unseen. Here in Dallas, some real estate agent I talked to said they closed their second Zoom or Skype home, that people are they're moving so fast that people are just saying, just show it to me, just walk through it with me on your phone. The real estate agent does, and they're like, good, I'll take it. That's crazy. That is crazy. I'm temporarily, although maybe permanently, in South Florida now. I also got my place sight unseen. Robin was looking at listings around Miami, and then she saw an area we had never been to before. We found 3 houses we liked. She called the first real estate agent. Place number 1, just rented that morning, 50% higher than the asking price. Place number 2, also rented to New Yorkers. Place number 3, available. We'll take it, we said. The first time we physically saw it was when we flew down and moved in. This is temporary, right? I confirmed with Robin, but I don't know. I'm starting to like the sun a little bit. I mean, when it's behind the shades, and I'm in air conditioning. But let's move on for a second. Businesses are remote, and they aren't returning to the office, and it's a death spiral. The longer offices remain empty, the longer they'll remain empty. In 2005, a hedge fund manager was visiting my office and said, in Manhattan, you practically trip over opportunities in the street. But now the streets are empty. I co-own a comedy club, Stand Up New York, 78th and Broadway. I'm very proud of the club, grateful for my fellow owners and my manager. It's a great club. We've been around since '86. Before then, it was a theater. One time, Henry Winkler stopped by to come on my podcast, and he was the one who told me it had been a theater. He said, I grew up 2 doors down from here, used to perform there as a kid. Then I went out to L.A. to be the Fonz, and now I'm back here full circle to be on your podcast. This place has history. Things like that happen in New York. We had a show in May. It was an outdoor show. Everybody social distanced, but we were shut down by the police. I guess we were super spreading humor during a very serious time. The club is doing something fun. We're doing shows outside in the park. It's a great idea. In a time like this, businesses need to give to the community and not complain. Broadway is closed until at least spring. Lincoln Center is closed. All the museums are closed. Forget about the tens of thousands of jobs lost in those cultural centers. Forget even about the millions of dollars of tourist and tourist-generated revenues lost by the closing of those centers. There are thousands of performers, producers, artists, the entire ecosystem of art, theater, production, curation that surrounds just those cultural centers. People who have worked all their lives for the right to perform even once on Broadway, whose lives and careers are now on hold. But the question is, what happens now? What happens next? And given the uncertainty, since there is no known answer, and given the fact that people, cities, economies loathe uncertainty, we don't know the answer. And that's a bad thing for New York City. Right now, Broadway is closed until at least early 2021. But is that true? We don't know. And what does it mean? Will we only have 25% capacities? Broadway shows can't survive on that. Hot dog stands outside of Lincoln Center and outside on the streets, finished. My favorite restaurant closed for good. Commercial real estate. If building owners and landlords lose their prime tenants, storefronts, the bottom floor of the offices, the well-to-do office top floors, they go too, and they'll go out of business. And what happens when they go out of business? Well, actually, nothing. And that's the bad news. People who would have rented, bought, and say, wow, everybody is saying New York City is heading back to the 1970s, and the prices might be 50% lower than they were a year ago, but better safe than sorry. I think I'll wait. Then everyone waiting, prices go down. So people see prices go down and say, good thing I waited. But what happens if I wait even more? This is called a deflationary spiral. People wait, prices go down. Nobody wins because the landlords or owners go broke and less money gets spent in the city. Nobody moves in, no motion in the market, and people already owning in the area can afford to hang on, have to wait longer to return to their restaurants, their services that they were used to. Will prices go down enough that everyone buys? Maybe, maybe not. There are also 600,000 college students spread out through New York City, from Columbia to Fordham to St. John's. Will they require remote learning? Will kids even be on the campus? Yeah, but New York City always comes back. I lived 3 blocks from Ground Zero on 9/11. Downtown, where I lived, was destroyed, but it came roaring back within 2 years. And in 2008 and 9, much suffering during the Great Recession, much again hardship, but things came roaring back. But this time it is different. You're never supposed to say this, but this time it's true. If you believe this time is no different, that New York City is resilient, I hope you're right. I don't benefit at all for saying this. I love New York. I was born there. I lived there forever. I still live there. I love everything about New York City. I want 2019 back. But this time it is different. The difference is bandwidth. We now have meetings on Zoom, 20 megabytes per second. That's more than enough for high-quality video. Before, we couldn't remotely work. Now we can. We're officially AB. After bandwidth. And for the entire history of New York City until now, we were before bandwidth. It goes on, and I highly recommend that you listen to it, or you watch it, or read it. It's from James Altucher, and he is a great, great podcaster. This particular piece was written for LinkedIn, and it is New York City is dead forever, and here's why. It is a very sad thing. The problem with New York is it is a love-hate relationship with everyone who lives there. You absolutely hate it because it's the worst of the worst, and it's the most expensive and everything else. But you love it because there is truly no other city on earth like it. There was a video posted. Can we play this video? There was a video posted just the other day about New York City. And it shows the empty streets of New York City. And it is Fifth Avenue, block after block after block. Everything is boarded closed. Not of riots and looting. It's now a very dangerous city, and nothing is going on. There are no shops to go into, no museums, no shows. You're just trapped in New York City. It is not a good situation. And unfortunately, that's going to happen to a lot of our cities.